Hello, lowly Tarnished playing at Lords and target demographic for digital swords. My name is Gonilok, and I traditionally cover heavy metal and similar blossoms of extreme music, but let's face the gruesome reality. Metalheads are nerds, not just for obscure literature and gooey horror, but also for popular literature and dry horror, and more topically, the video game. Despite the impending release of Shadow of the Erdtree, I've noticed a shocking lack of Elden Ring content online. There's practically nothing at all if you don't count challenge runs, regular runs, lore recaps, lore theories, cosplay, fanart, and mechanical showcases. So, I have taken it upon myself to make a video in one of the categories I just disregarded. Ladies and or gentlemen, I present to you a rotten recap of Elden Ring's lore. It makes sense to start at the beginning, the Soldier of Godrick. Since this is the first demigod encountered in a standard playthrough, it logically follows that he or she birthed the lesser gods found later on. There is no evidence of the existence of great runes or even of the Erdtree itself until the soldier is slain and releases mysterious white wisps. While this animation is found in previous Souls games, if you delete these assets from the game immediately after the battle, the wisps aren't seen emitting from a single other enemy or NPC throughout the campaign. This suggests uniqueness, most likely that the wisps are little seedlings, shot throughout the lands between to birth the children Marika, Radagon, Godfrey, and of course Godrick, who inherits the family name from the Soldier of Godrick. It's worth pointing out that the Japanese description for Godrick's remembrance says this. I myself can't read Japanese, but it's probably pretty interesting. The soldier's least talented child, ironically named Godwyn, was shortly thereafter epically owned by the invaders, and consequentially joined those who live in death. Death is not currently accessible in the map, but if its inhabitants are anything like those who live in Caelid, they must be magnificently ugly, a fitting punishment for spoiling the Soldier of Godrickian legacy. But if you listen to what the NPCs tell you, you have too much time on your hands, and you know that Godwyn almost came back to life at Castle Sol. He donned the clever disguise of Godfroy, hoping that his new name would get lost in the mix since George R.R. Martin used 6 letters total when naming everything in the game. Regrettably, despite the efforts of the twin princes Malenia and Miquella, they got his ass and bound his dumb dead soul into the Everjail, which, insult to injury, they couldn't even spell correctly since George didn't allot them enough letters. Godfroy, or God Fraud, as the Gravity Worms mercilessly call him in the deleted side quest Comedy Central presents The Roast of Godwyn, is purple, black, blue, black and violet, dark colors. And as Miyazaki told us when he ghost wrote Candlemass's Nightfall album, dark are the veils of death. Godwyn, it seems, died when he was killed by a gang of teenage Artoriuses. I'm sure Vati Vidya has a 3-hour special feature examining the connection between murder and death, but what he may not know is that death has other subgenres. This brings me to Ranni the Witch, another blue bitch, but by her own design. One of the central themes of the Elden Ring is usurpation, and more generally, subversion of the established power structure. Miquella wants to defy death. Ricard wants to devour the very gods. The Godskin duo wants to ruin every no-summon run. Moog wants to, get up to something. And everyone and their mother seems to be a hopeful prospect for Elden Lord. Ranni, keeping with this theme, killed her soldier of Godrickian flesh, killed her 2 fingers, and instead fingered herself as the best candidate for matriarchy. Most characters are destined for failure, like Godwyn's dumbass, but you can actually see Ranni's vision through if you're in the habit of talking to dolls. That hasn't gotten me anywhere yet, but I'll just cross my fingers instead of double-crossing my fingers. Ranni has twice as many as I do anyway. I can't afford that luxury. Lying, however, is free, so let's continue with Ranni's mother. Rennala's purpose in this universe is mostly a cruel reminder that we'll never get a proper Bloodborne sequel, but observant players know that she got swindled into being a gay woman. By marrying Radagon, Rennala united the Carian sorcery with the Golden Order, but much like an actual intelligence and faith build, it simply wasn't viable. Radagon is Marika, and Marika is Marika, who is also Radagon, who, as previously established, is Marika. It's more complicated than that, but whether they're two parts of a whole, two wholes playing two parts, or one part with two wholes, the problem for Rennala is that it's entirely beyond her control. Miyazaki poetically draws a parallel between the phases of the moon and divine homosexuality. She's channeling power, but the source dictates the aesthetic. Is she queen of the full moon? Is she mistress of the crescent moon? Is she a derelict bisexual with no future narrative purpose besides cradling an egg? All questions to ponder. The only remaining detail that I think carries any weight, since I don't care about eternal cities, much less the fire giant, is dearest Miquella. A jaw-droppingly feminine white boy of much renown that we hear a lot about but don't engage with. Miquella and his sister Torrent, despite being hideous incest babies, were apparently a big deal and took measures accordingly to hide their flaws and muster their strength. Torrent afflicted himself with scarlet rot until his natural beauty was warped into a sickly, pale, unrecognizable humanoid. A vast mystery to all except for General Radagon, whose lifelong intimacy with horses gave him the eyes to look beyond the veil. Luckily, Torrent, or Melania, boggled his mind just enough that his loose lips wouldn't pose an issue ever again. Miquella, on the other hand, was not as clever, masquerading himself as Street Trina. While the art of the alter ego and nom de gore is hardly unheard of in Elden Ring, Miquella creatively assigned himself the name of the exact street he lives on. If you rode Melania through the residential portions of the Lands Between, you surely realize that even a street name narrows the location down quite a bit. Unsurprisingly, Moog seized our feeble feminine male in the prime of his youth, and then he, And that's about all that happens in the entirety of Elden Ring. Quite a simple story when you approach it logically. I'm going to return to my home bathed in rays of gold, and you're all welcome to do the same. Thanks for tuning in, fellow Tarnished.